Hi, Chap.C here. I've been working on my game called Aiden Jr. for around 8 months now, if you don't count the earlier build of the game from 15 years ago. And I think it's a good time to show you the progress, because I now implemented a behavior tree, a state machine, and I also implemented the combat. Again, I already did implement combat a while ago, but I had no clue what I was doing, even more so than I don't have a clue right now, so it was just a mess. So I really had to re-implement the state machine, rethink the whole combat system, and I really feel like I'm at a point now to focus on different things, such as the overall world design, the first level, and even further develop the combat and the enemy systems. So since we are now 8 months in, I feel like we should go back to the earlier devlogs, just scroll through them a bit, see where we came from, and then we'll end the video with the current state of my game. Alright, let's see. Oh yeah, if you want to subscribe to a gaming channel with videos that nobody watches, please subscribe to this dude as well. He's a fun guy. He's not a game developer, he just plays games on his channel, and he streams every Sunday. He looks like Joseph Seed, by the way. He's kind of cringe though, but the moment you get used to him, he's okay. This is the very first version of Aiden, and I had no idea about the art style. And the first little animation test looked like this. And this is around 2010 or 11. Again, all these videos are on my channel, obviously, but in this video I go through all artwork that I created back in the good old days. I tell you about the inspiration, games that I played back then. I tell you about the very first design of the guy, and this kind of looks like the current version of the game, but then obviously different art style. And then the very first playable game, and I based it on the Citrus engine. It's a Flash engine and a Macromedia Flash, Adobe Flash later on. And I got pretty far with the game. Here's some combat, jab jab into kick. I even made cutscenes. I had a whole story in my mind. There was dialogue that you could interact by just pressing a key. There was combat, as you can see. You can kill the crabs. It even has this little Wind Waker explosion. You will see something similar in the current build of the game. At this point I was still thinking about a fully 3D model, somewhat like the modern platformers of Mario, like Mario Wonder. But I found out pretty fast that I suck at 3D. Just look at him. I was super proud though, it was one of my first models ever, and it could move and it had a skeleton. And then I put it in my very first Godot project. I had no idea what I was doing. I just drag and dropped objects and I just clicked on buttons until something worked, and this was the result. So yeah, this was eight months ago. So I kind of took a step back from actual game development, and I started to think about the game itself. How do I want to make a new version of Aiden Jr. in this day and age? So I just went and played a bunch of games that I enjoy very much. My most favorite games of all time, which include Half-Life. I played Doom. I played one of my favorite games of all time, Duke Nukem. And a huge inspiration, at least from a visual point of view, not gameplay necessarily, but the Wind Waker. I really like the approach that you can have a very childlike game, but with very mature gameplay. And last but not least, another of one of my favorite games, actually, a pretty recent game, is the Turtles games. It's, the classic beat-em-up games from the good old days, from the Super Nintendo. What I really like about this game is how it's still a classic 2D game from left and right, but you can still go up and down, away from the camera and towards the camera. So I wanted a mix that kind of, plays like this game, but still uses a 3D engine with all the benefits of a 3D engine, obviously, and with some visual influence of the Wind Waker. Oh yeah, and I still worked on the 3D model. This one looks way better, but it's so difficult to animate and rig it and make it all look good. I decided not to go for a 3D style. The third video, it's the famous Brackeys tutorial. I did the tutorial, I made my first game, and I just couldn't resist myself creating a pixel art version of the character, which was so cool. I never made pixel art before. It was such a fun thing to do, and while the animations look very wonky, I was super proud of it. Yeah, I think Brackeys played a big role in the decision to make video games again. And I feel like at some point I would have always restarted the journey, but he definitely put it into the full gear. Whenever I did the tutorial, I kind of fell in love with Godot, and from that moment on, I just never stopped. And in the same video, I show a 2.5 prototype of my game. You know, sprites in a more 3D type of environment, but still having a camera that goes from left to right. Yeah, basically a 2.5 hybrid between 2D games and 3D games. I made some first drafts of the overall design of the game. And then I wanted to focus on the fundamentals. To have a smooth camera, a good player controller, without graphics still. But this was my first prototype that I really felt good about. And I was, you know, slowly but steady figuring out the engine. After a while, I figured out how to use the grid map. I created some first world blocks in Blender. I had to learn how to UV map and do all the basic stuff, essentially, to have those little cubicle parts that I can use as a building system for my level. And after a few weeks, I had this working for me. The animations look very rough, but the overall idea of the sunset and the pretty graphics in the background, I pretty much stole everything with the background, by the way. Those are existing assets that I found on the World Wide Web, but the overall idea, you know, kind of proved that there's some potential. And that's Nicolas Cage. Every game needs a Nicolas Cage cameo. This wasn't really a devlog, but I implemented some form of combat. I am heavily inspired by Super Smash Bros. The way you can do aerial attacks like the forward air, backward air, neutral air, some jabs, some combos. So I basically implemented that in an earlier version of the game. This is like a back kick right there. Woo! Boom! There's an early version of the uppercut. Super rough animation. But you know, prototypes don't need to be pretty. Test out as much as possible. Oh, that was a slide. Some basic jabs. Neutral air. Floomp. Then I started over because I learned so much and the overall project was just a mess. So I started recreating the project from scratch. And then I started on different things, such as the line of sight of the enemies. I made this cone, and whenever the crab can see you, the line turns green and then it starts to follow you. And at this point, I think I was just looking for reasons to explore different parts of game development. I had no idea how raycasts work, for example, or how you would go about the line of sight of the enemies. So I just picked random things that I wanted to learn, followed a bunch of tutorials, and made it work in my game. And while doing that, I was optimizing the controls, the way you could slide with your shield, and many more little details in the animation system. And I can never resist screwing around with prototypes. Just see what happens if you put as many crabs into the game. So then I focused on the overall design, having a more simplistic background that has a parallax effect. I focused on behavior trees and on state machines with the Limbo AI plugin. So I created some smart bird AI, birds that can walk into groups, that will fly away when scared, that have some movement, some random movement to them, some fishes in the background that behave randomly. And by the way, if you are curious yourself about behavior trees, I just made a very detailed tutorial. So if you want to make smart birds yourself, go and watch that video. And like I mentioned, the Wind Waker is a very visual inspiration. So I created my own little Wind Waker explosion, which at some point completely bugged out and created this wild firestorm of violence. Alright, let's go to the current build of the game. There you go. This is what 8 months of game development looks like. I probably could have been way further than this, but there are reasons for me being somewhat slow, which is, by the way, a good video idea. So I won't go into details, but this is basically 8 months of Chap.C progression. From knowing nothing, or at least I knew the basics of programming. I have a background in web development, so I had some basic knowledge of how programming works, how a class could work, how inheritance work, functions and variables and that kind of stuff. But it's very basic. The birds are actually pretty advanced. They can roam around the world. They can pick different locations. They will fly away. They will alert each other whenever you get close. And as you can see, whenever they get into like some obstruction, they can jump over it. and all that stuff. That's the behavior tree, by the way, the Limbo AI behavior tree. As you can see, I also made new versions of the wasps, which, you know, look pretty good if I say so myself. The behavior of the wasps don't exist yet, so that's why they just float there and do nothing. But I wanted some aerial targets to test out the new combat system. So that's why I created some early versions of the wasps. I think I already showed many things, such as the movement system, but I tweaked many things. For example, the running animation has this little wobble now. Aiden isn't as glued to the floor as he was previously. I think I already showed the sliding with the little rotation of the shield. The moment you slow down, you can go and shield while jumping. You know, it all reacts to real physics, which is super cool. And I completely revamped the animation yet again, because I want a snappy movement controller, but I still want a little slowdowns and a little accelerations at the start, so it feels like you're actually in the world. There is now this charge animation for the kick, so if you hold attack, he will charge his kick. There's a combat system that makes you do this 3-hit combo. Jab, jab, punch. In my previous game, the third hit was a kick, but I made it so that the jabs are all like good old boxing moves. I tweaked the neutral air. The head really pops out. All animations are now colored, by the way, so they don't look as rough as they did in the earlier combat devlog. They're not finished yet, but they are at least improved. There's still a forward air. There's a back air. Oh yeah, in the previous game you could do this tackle slide, but I replaced it with a dash attack with the shield. I'm not completely happy with the animation, but I do like the concept of the dash, because I feel like with a shield that Aiden has, it makes way more sense to use it as a weapon. What I really like is that you can use the dash to also do small jumps. So I created those Wind Waker explosions for a reason, because I want to have explosions whenever the enemies die. Yeah, it's a very violent game, and those will look like this. It's actually not easy to kill the birds because they fly away. Boom. What I really like about the clouds is that the movement of the animation of the explosion is based on the impact location. So if you hit somebody on the left side, the clouds will go to the right side. If you hit somebody from beneath, the clouds will also go upwards. I still have to tweak it, but if you do, for example, the back air, boom, you know, you have this little momentum going on. I really like it. Oh, another thing that I did is introducing the short hop and full hop, also inspired by Super Smash Bros. So you can do a small jump. If you hold it, you can do a full jump. And with that, you can time your attacks, just like this. The neutral air will have the least impact, but it has this multi-directional hurt box. The back air is the most powerful, but hardest to land. The forward air is a very straightforward, decent move. Boom! And I think I will use the dash attack to imbalance enemies that are shielding, for example. And another thing that I created is a staggering system. The moment you hit an enemy for like 3 times in a row, or at least that's the case with the crabs, I will probably make it dynamic for each enemy type. It will go into the staggering state. As you can see right now, it starts to dance. And the current staggering animation is still a placeholder. It won't do the wiggle animation. But you get the picture. From that moment on, you can also grab the enemy. You can throw him in the air to continue your combos. There's probably going to be a finishing move that you can only apply when they're staggered. Or when they're staggered, you can charge your attack and finish the job this way. So yeah, the staggering will play a huge part in the combat system. And those who play Super Smash Bros., they see the resemblance. I will not 100% copy it because it needs to work in my game as well. And this is not like a traditional fighting game, it's also a platformer. So I won't have the same rolling and smash attacks and all different special moves. In my game, you don't get to shield as in Smash. You can go in your shield, which will give you some protection, but you don't have the shield bubble around you at any time. There will also not be a grab button. I like it how the Turtle game does it. The moment somebody is staggered and you walk into them, they will automatically grab the enemy. So no separate grab button. as well. I want to keep the control scheme as simple as possible, so you don't have to learn buttons. There's no smash attacks, there's only this charge attack. Whenever you jump, there's like an extra circle that serves as a secondary shadow that makes you able to see where you land. And the wasps also have them, so you know where to hit them. It's not perfect yet, but it's less annoying than my previous build, because the depth perception was really a problem in the previous build. And this isn't perfect yet, but it's way better. From this moment on, I think it's a matter of tweaking the hurt and hitboxes so it's not too easy, but also not annoying. And I might even recolor the decal circle. So let me know in the comments below what you think. And I want to know about your journey as well. How did your prototype or game look after 8 months of experience? Do you think I make slow progress or decent progress? Just give me all your unfiltered opinions. Be nice though. I got a huge ego. I'm triggered super fast. No, just be honest. I can handle it. So what's next? I'm not completely sure. I think I will be working on the world. I want to design the first level. I want to add houses, more 3D objects. I want to see how the game will actually look like when you design a level. I also need to work on the actual combat, so those wasps and crabs don't just stand still here. I need to re-implement the field of view and the chasing and, you know, implement a more advanced behavior tree. But I feel like I'm going to work on the world for a while. I think that is also a healthy thing to do, because I can literally dream about the state machine and behavior trees. And those aren't really my favorite dreams, I can tell you. Oh, by the way, I also made a logo. It was my previous video, I think. So if you want to check that out, go and watch this video. All right, again, let me know what you think in the comments below, and I see you guys around in the next video or streams. By the way, the streams are on the different channel, the orange channel. I see you guys there. Bye-bye.